Welcome to Space to Lead, the podcast where leaders and teams come together to learn, grow, and thrive. I'm your host, David LeBlanc, and every episode will explore fresh insights and strategies that inspire leaders to create dynamic, engaging cultures. We'll dive into conversations with leaders and industry experts who are transforming teams and shaping the future of leadership. Whether you're leading from the front or working within a team, Space to Lead is here to spark ideas and help you lead with purpose and passion. So, take a deep breath, make some space, and let's lead together. On today's episode, we continue the conversation with Janet Davie. In our last episode, we talked about the importance of leaders creating space to focus and prioritize, and of course, the foundational element of any team or organization is its people. Janet, it is so great to have you back. When we chatted last time about leadership, creating space, room to be really intentional and thoughtful about your leadership, your goals, breaking your goals down into smaller bits, there was something that jumped out. And while it's not a surprise, it's something that I think we don't create enough space for. And that was that connection between leadership and people. So I would love if we could do a little bit of a deeper dive on that element of the conversation because we really didn't go there. And I think it's important.
Okay, I'm game.
So tell me a bit more about the people element of leadership. I'd love to hear from you what you've noticed and what you think is so critical.
Oh, I think I mentioned last time that we talked about emotional intelligence or self-awareness in leadership and how valuable it is to an organization once leaders understand how they're showing up, how their teams experience them or their peers experience them. That's the place to start, but there's a lot more work to be done. Once they're aware, once you see, you can't unsee, and appreciating themselves as who they are is really important. And then having a skill to understand who their people are. And I love the word people because staff sounds like ownership. Um, it's just the way I operate. But learning how to really listen to what someone is saying, how someone is being, how they're showing up. David, in my experience and in my learnings, there's more listening when you're watching. So the body language of someone that's come to you for some help or a conversation, or if the leader's having a one-to-one with their staff, really being open to paying attention, putting their phone down, closing their computer screen, and listening to understand.
I love that. And it was nice because I liked the language you used at the start when you just first started talking, when you talked about how people experience their leader. And when you started to tie in not only what they're saying, but their body language, the environment, that really speaks to that overall experience.
Mhm. Yeah. And there's going to touch on the diversity thing as well, though we have so many people with English as a second language in the workplace now, people coming back to work that have been off for unknown reasons, all of these different things that every individual is exactly that, an individual. So leaders need to experience and appreciate people as who they are and how they show up and help them come along into the culture of the organization.
Oh, such an important point. And if I'm that leader who has 10 things on the go and my boss is worried about numbers and where this project is and there's fires, it's really difficult to create the space to notice all those things that you just described.
Yes. And that's again where the leader needs that white space in their calendar and not to be overwhelmed with too many direct reports, too many people that need their care and attention, or they can't show up as their best selves. So, how do we find that balance in the workplace?
Yeah. So I mean, it's great. You talk about white space in the calendar, finding balance in the
Sounds good.
workplace. It sounds really great.
Yeah,
What does it look like in practice though?
people are rushing. People are rushing. And it's so in my role, I often express the need. It's not a want, it's a necessity for them to slow down for themselves, for their own health, but to slow down so that they can understand and guide and lead from a place of caring.
Mm. All right, so I'm going to play devil's advocate here a
Uh-oh.
little bit. So it's you're saying all these really great things, create this space and time in my calendar for understanding and caring. And in my mind as a leader, I'm thinking, that's great, Janet, but I have a job to do. This feels like a lot more work. So how would you respond to that?
There is so much truth in that statement, David. And it's how do we prioritize? Like what is important and how do we coach and bring our people along? I've been working as a team coach as well and helping teams fit together. So culture is really important to me and taking the time. I'm sorry. It's really difficult.
Yeah.
And maybe leaders need to learn to coach better, quicker, faster. I'm not sure. Though
And
there's an element of coaching in leadership always.
yeah,
Good leaders, good leaders coach.
100%. And of course, you're preaching to the converted because I'm
Yes,
right there with you and I recognize the value and importance of doing exactly what you describe. And I know one of the things that I have shared with leaders I've worked with is that it's absolutely true. Initially, to change how you show up to create that space, it's going to take more effort. It's going to require intention and time and commitment. And over a period of time, if you
correct.
do that right, exactly what you just described, the culture of the team, the organization shifts and you do become more effective. So it's almost, you can't see, this is a podcast, you can't see me hand gesturing, but
I see it.
there is this increase in effort and commitment. And over time, actually, the effort and commitment reduces because you learn to work together differently.
And I have enough history with some leaders that it has happened where once they learn to coach their team, they're actually, they've got white space in their calendar they don't know what to do with. Um, it's incredible. It's a huge effort at the beginning to change behaviors, and that's leadership behaviors as well. And once you change, oh,
I'm smiling because in my head I'm going, you heard it here first, folks, from Janet. If you do this, you're going to have spare time and not know what to do with it.
it's it's absolutely true. There's people I know that have actually gone on vacation and left their phones at home. Just saying. So
Sounds very luxurious.
it takes a great deal of effort and purposeful intention to
Yeah.
make the shift, David, and it takes time. It's this back to this the podcast previously. Small bites make big differences.
Yeah. Yeah. So, what is different about typical leadership and the style of leadership that you're talking about and alluding to in this conversation today?
It's amazing how often I forget because I've worked, like I say, with some of my leaders for years. And then when someone new comes along and they're in that, oh my God, everything's broken mode, and how to bring them in, that it takes time. They don't they they don't know where to focus, what's important, what the priorities are, and they're running 100 miles an hour and their anxiety showing through even their body language. And it's how to help them settle and prioritize
Hmm.
and then start delegating and listening to their, here we go with the word again, people.
Yeah. So I heard a few things there. I heard it takes time. I'm using my own language, but it takes a bit of intention
Oh,
because you
totally.
talked about prioritizing. I heard about listening. I heard about delegating. So those are
Yes.
some key elements of this style of leadership. Is that fair to say?
And I'm going to add one more piece because that was a really good summary. Really understanding that it's a growth mindset, like how we move things forward. Nothing's impossible. I am possible is impossible broken up. But first, you have to believe and start to work on behaviors of your own first, and then
Right.
behaviors of the culture that you want in the organization.
Right. And layering in something that you shared earlier in this conversation, this whole idea of inclusion,
Mm-hmm.
recognizing that one size doesn't fit all. So if we do create the space, the intention, we're able to better understand the various needs of those within our team and adapt accordingly.
That's a really good, yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And effort for sure.
Effort. And that was that part when I was teasing you a little bit because the effort sometimes seems like such a big mountain to get over when we have so many things on our plate as leaders.
Oh, exactly. And that's where you look at the picture of the ladder of leadership, and the bottom rung is so high. But if you just kind of add a couple more rungs in there, it's an easier climb. But it takes a
Mm,
little more time,
yeah. Yeah.
time to
Everything seems
start.
to come back to space and time, doesn't it?
It does.
Yeah.
And intention.
And intention. Nice. So, what would be the first step for a leader if it was something that they wanted to do? What would be the first step for them?
Understand some great tools, some steps that they can learn themselves on how to slow down and how to listen and act with intention, lead with
Nice.
intention.
Nice. Nice. And I might challenge leaders if this is something that you're thinking about in the next 2 weeks, throw a little bit of a space in your calendar where you can sit and reflect on what kind of a leader do I want to be?
Ooh, I like that.
And then that would tie to some of the things that you shared with us today, Janet, and in our previous conversation around once I understand what kind of leader I want to be, what is a short-term goal that can help get me on that path?
Yeah. And it's different for everyone.
Yeah, so true.
There isn't an individual manual for each leader.
Wouldn't it make it easier if there was?
Yeah, no, we bring our whole selves to everything we do.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you so much, Janet, for creating this bit of extra space to talk about the people element of leadership. Thoroughly enjoyed the conversation and look forward to our next one.
Uh-oh. Thank you for having me, David. It's been a blast.
If you are a leader looking to up your game by adding coaching skills to your practice, you can find details about our Coaching in the Workplace program at leblancleadership.ca. Thank you for joining us on Space to Lead. We hope you join us again.